Welcome everybody to another episode of Brown Munde. You know what? When I heard this one, when Aki pulled this one through this podcast with this guest, I was quite surprised. Um, uh, Somebody that we've all kind of been following, we've listened to even before we even dreamed up doing a podcast. I know I did anyway, and I always enjoyed listening to it. And I think I'll go into the latter part why I was surprised, and we'll get into that. But Phil, welcome to the Brown Monday. How you doing?
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on, lads.
No pressure, all lads. Obviously, as per normal, we've got the stalwarts Akil and Afsar, boys.
Yeah, good man, good.
All good on my end. It's a standard
Super.
Wednesday, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Phil wouldn't know that because obviously he's on the other side of the world.
He's on his island. He's woke up as well, hasn't he?
It's like 9 a.m. where you are, I think.
It's 9:23 in the morning here.
Yeah, it's that, he's before we just started recording, he had to put his AC on.
Yeah,
I'm not saying
that's
anymore,
right.
like, do you know what I mean?
Those
But
are
Phil,
big
obviously, I don't need to introduce you. Everybody knows who you are. Obviously, you've been doing your podcast for a very long time. Obviously, you're doing well in that kind of things. But on our podcast, what we'll always do when we have a new guest on we always like to know the backstory. Obviously, yourself, Phil. Obviously, how did you get into football?
Mm.
And I know you're a United supporter, so
Yeah.
and how did you get into Sporting United?
So I was the youngest of four growing up in Belfast. I have an older sister. My two older brothers were both Liverpool fans, actually. When I was a young kid, maybe 5 years of age, there was a friend of ours who lived across the street who had bought me a United kit. But honestly, the main reason, when you're a kid, you watch different football teams, but there was something glamorous about United that really captivated me. The huge Old Trafford pitch, the shirts, the crowd, the fact that United, had players from Belfast obviously helped. With George Best, of course, Norman Whiteside at the time, and United were huge over there. So from a young age, from I was 5 years of age, I was just completely smitten, and it's been a part of my life ever since. I mean, I've been through some low moments, as we all have in our lives. There are very few things that bring you joy when you're at the bottom, and United have always been one of those things where it's always been a positive distraction from my life. You get older, you become a bit more cynical about things. But when you're younger, your lens and perspective isn't poisoned yet. And so from when I was a kid, United have always been a major part of my life.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Like you said, it's something that it's part of us, isn't it? It kind of shapes you up. I think later on you realize that when you're young, you don't kind of realize that. But I was a United fan. My parents are from India, so I had nothing else. A connection. I didn't have a father who'd watch the games or brothers or sisters or anything like that. Again, a friend of mine had a card, and it was a United card, and I started supporting them from then. But what's quite interesting, because I had cousins who were Liverpool fans, and I think they tried to put me that way. I could have gone, but I think because my friends were United fans at school, I kind of stayed with United. But I kind of find that quite interesting. So your siblings are Liverpool fans?
Yeah. So beyond learning how to love Manchester United, I learned how to fight because there was a lot of fights. Trust me. My grandmother used to live across the street, so we always had to be separated when the matches were on, and I don't know if it was because they were Liverpool fans, but it intensified my love of Manchester United, where I became like a really bit of a weird fanatic, to be honest. I didn't have the benefit of the internet back then, so everything felt fresh. Everything, there was no saturation of the media. There was no, you weren't getting bombarded with content every day. I mean, I remember waking up in the morning, picking up a newspaper and finding out United had signed Cantona, which was, this would never happen now. I remember, my first complete fascination, and my first idol was Mark Hughes. Like I worshipped Mark Hughes as a child. It's when you're growing up in a difficult situation, like you're growing up in Belfast, and you lads will understand, representation matters
Yeah,
at the very highest level, right? People that look like you, that are exactly like you, that whose life circumstances, situation that they grow up in every day is similar to what you go, so that's very inspiring. And so for me as a kid, seeing people that had come up from a similar environment from me, that gave me hope that there was something better than what was going on outside my window. That's very, very important for kids in difficult situations, especially in situations where there's conflict, there's war, whatever your circumstance, these things matter. When you're trying to you're having your identity accepted in a society that's rejecting it, representation at the top really matters.
Yeah, 100%. You know, like you said, it's someone you can aspire to, and you know there's something better out there. You just got to keep going. I completely understand. I mean, just to ask you, obviously, you know, you're from Northern Ireland, Belfast. You're not there at the moment in time.
No.
You're over the US. What's that transition and how did that happen?
So when I was a kid growing up, my uncle was an engineer for Boeing. It's not doing too right now, but I used to come out here on holiday, and obviously the contrast between America and Belfast was great. And I was growing up during the Troubles, so my mum and dad wanted me to leave. More my dad, to be honest. I applied for my green card. It takes a long time. But when you're young like this, you don't think too far in the future. You just think about the next week or the next month. I didn't really have any, ideation of being out here for years. And it was just, let's go do this for a while and see how it is. And then 1 year turns into 2, turns into 3, and you have a family and things change. And, it's a bit strange because when you first came out, you're really patriotic for the place that you left. And then after a while, your identity sort of erodes and you become a man without a country. And I love that's just like anywhere, the stuff that makes the headlines about a place really never really tells the story of what goes on in day-to-day life. Like anywhere, there's bad people, there's good people, but it's really difficult to impose an identity on America because America's African Americans, it's Native Americans, it's Latino Americans, Latina Americans, it's people from all over the world with multiple different identities that don't fit the description of people here. The political system totally different, but the people, the life that you live every day on a daily basis with Americans, they're quite good people, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to the US a couple of times, and like you said, yeah, it's a great place to be.
First of all, lads, let me just add a caveat to that. I'm white, so I can't. America, I was here when 9/11 happened, and America changed dramatically after that, to the point where really quite radicalized the country in an ignorant way. There's a lot of younger generation people that weren't part of that see through it. But people of my generation and above, it's really quite sad.
Can I just ask one quick question there, Phil? You said obviously your parents wanted you to leave Northern Ireland because of all the trouble going on.
Yep.
So I assume you were quite young. So when did you actually move to the States? Because I thought it was something more recent.
No, I've been here 20 years. So
on
and off. First came out when I was 18, went back. And then came back when I was just before 21. So, I've been here a while. And, my oldest son, his mother passed away. She was an American. So I was going to come back after that. But it was difficult because obviously my oldest son's grandparents and everything are here. I ended up meeting somebody else a bit later, and there's a big gap between my kids. But this life happens, like you just you think everything's going great. That year, I just opened my own business. I just bought my first house. I just became a father, and then at the end of the year, all those things became a trap because I'd lost my wife to be. Now I had to go to work. I couldn't take time off because I now owed my own business, and I had a mortgage to pay, and I had a kid to feed. Those three things that were the best things in my life became difficult because I just wanted to check out. I was in so much grief.
Wow. Sorry to hear that, but obviously
the
fact that you've come through it just shows, you know, the character that you are.
I'm coming through it. You know, you never. No life is perfect. People look at the internet, they look at the Instagram, and they look at Twitter, and they see a small excerpt of life, and then they build up this perception that someone's life is far greater than theirs. This is all bullshit. This is all
you know what it is? I think this is what people don't see as well. They just see the profile and what you show.
Correct.
There's a lot of things that people don't see as well, and I think that's what people like. For me, like
100%.
that story. Like I've known of you for a long time. Just to get in contact with you, it was months ago, wasn't it? Probably last year or something. It was an inspiration because I was like, look, you know what? I can in a way relate to Phil, but also we've got something in common, which is Manchester United.
Mate, I don't look up at anyone and I don't look down on anyone, because if people look up to me, it means I have to look down on them. We're the same. Okay?
Yeah.
There's nothing particularly special about me that isn't that none of you lads have. You know, we apply all the wrong metrics to people's value in life. Capitalism commoditizes our value in life. That translates, especially young boys, translates to how much money you make or how much, you know, what your job is. And if you don't have any of those, then you have no value. This is so dehumanizing. None of this is real. Or your follower can't. These bullshit metrics that mean nothing. Sorry. None of these things mean anything in life. They're no metric of any success or anything like that. And we're all just Manchester United fans talking about United. 99% of what we say as opinions, we're probably wrong about everything. I don't know. Maybe we're right about some things, but I don't have any particular high opinion of myself to think that there's something better about me than anyone else. I've been too low as a human being. And I mean, there's been a significant part of my life I didn't want to be with myself. Never mind someone else, you know, finding something admirable about me. So I realized that, you know, there's nothing particularly special about any of us. We're just all United fans, and you know, we're all the same.
No, 100%, Phil, and I'll go back to kind of what I opened up with the show with. Excuse me. Is it's quite funny actually. You said that, you know, when you was younger, you know, we didn't have as much access to the media or the news, what was happening. You know, you'd read in the paper that we've signed Mark Hughes, Eric Cantona, and things like that. But I think, like I said, one of my first interactions with yourself was obviously Beyond the Pitch. You know, you podcast, and you know, was talking about like all things takeover and things of that nature. And a lot of our listeners will know, you know, where we were born from is literally was in spaces and opinions of people. And like you says, it's crazy to us that when you had somebody like Sheikh Jassim who was interested, the Qataris, but the way they were being spoken about, just because of the color of his skin and from where he was from, you know, that's where us boys thought, well, hang on, you know, we're Man United fans, you know, these guys, Aki as well, you know, he's in Manchester, he's born and bred from there, but you know, just because of the color of his skin, it's almost like you know, you're not, you know, you how have you got opinion? Your opinion almost doesn't matter because you know. Way it came to us, especially like as a guy from the Middle East, and what we found is the people who aren't in Manchester, and you'll be one of them now that, you know, that is abroad and can't always get to the games. You're the ones who wake up early mornings to watch the games. You, especially of late as well, you wake up early in the morning, you're getting no joy out of it because of the way we're playing and the results that we're having. But still, every match, every game, you know, everything else, we contribute so much to what Manchester United is about. Do you know what I mean?
You don't have to justify anything to anybody.
No, exactly, and that's where we were born from. You know,
game that people play. I mean, what? So if you're not born in the halfway line at Old Trafford, you can't possibly be a United fan. I mean, what nonsense is this? The entire football club is cosmopolitan. I mean, where's the threshold here? Is it a 2-mile radius before you're disqualified? Is it a 5-mile radius? Is it, you know, this is nonsense. This is this puritanical nonsense that you have to have some legitimacy, and we're all competing to be Uber Reds. If I'm not a bigger Red than you, that's okay. I'll sleep tonight. And if you want to believe that you're, you know, more of a, you know, that you have this ethnic purity or something, this is bullshit. This is total nonsense, and no one should play this game. And this is, you know, these gatekeepers are have nothing to contribute. So these are people that I no longer even respond to, and there is no doubt whatsoever that some people have legitimate opposition to people, but there's also people whose opposition to people is motivated by prejudice. There's no doubt about that. That is undoubted. By the way, I think what we could say with a high degree of certainty is the West have lost all rights to pontificate about their, you know, their human rights, their commitment to human rights, and their commitment to values, and their international rules-based order, and their, you know, guaranteed human rights that come with their liberal democracies, which we've now seen that is total nonsense. So, you know, why isn't Germany facing similar scrutiny than what Qatar was facing? I mean, when you consider that Germany have had two, I don't mean to get political, have had two genocides. Palestinians are paying reparations for their second one. I have no idea how that works out. And in order to equalize their prejudice towards the Jewish community, because let's be honest, the Holocaust was a European Christian genocide, they have now decided that they can be racist towards Palestinians. I mean, this is absurd. Why are they not facing the same scrutiny? They are making it illegal for people to protest in their country. They ban Palestinian doctors and nobody says a word. What happened to us?
Yeah, like you said.
I mean, this is an illustration of the European hypocrisy over this.
Yeah.
You know, what's going to happen here in the US? You had the Copa Americas here. Where's the protests?
Yeah,
even then, you got the World Cup in 2 years in the US.
I know, but this is we know we know that the hypocrisy of this, right? We know that this has never been adjudicated fairly, and of course, some of this is motivated by prejudice. There's no doubt about that, right? And you know, Sir Jim Ratcliffe had Keir Starmer at the stadium 6 weeks ago. One of the biggest objections to state ownership is the fact that they have their human rights record. Well, what about his? He just turned around and justified starvation of children.
Yeah.
And by the way, his government's an accessory to that. How is that not criticized? I mean, if let me ask you this: if Jim Ratcliffe standing inside Old Trafford with someone like Mohammed bin Salman, are you telling me that the British media wouldn't be talking about Saudi crimes in Yemen or whatever? Of course they would.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, but hey, never been covered fairly.
I think to me, it's quite clear, isn't it? It's all money.
Always,
it's money, and that no one cares. You know, a lot of the stuff that's happening, it is just to create money. Some of these are proxy wars, some of these are all other things.
Money,
it's just it all comes down to money, selling arms and things like that. But I don't want to go down that route because I know with elections coming up on both sides,
they're meaningless, lads. They're just a different head that'll govern exactly the same.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, that's where, you know, obviously United fans come through, and I think then if I go down that layer more, it came almost like Sir Jim Ratcliffe camp, the Ineos camp, and the Sheikh Jassim camp, and it was just absolutely crazy. I mean, and this is where I was going from at the beginning. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Phil, as well. But obviously there was those two camps, and we was very much obviously pro Jassim, hence not so much because of his colour, but that's where we were born from because of the stuff that we'd heard. But what we wanted was 100% sale, and we just wanted the Glazers out. That was it. And if I've said it numerous times before, if people go look back at my tweet in 2021, 2022 as well, things like that, I was calling for Jim Ratcliffe because I thought he was going to come out and buy the whole Glazers all out. Do you know what I mean? But when we was hearing things like that were changing, but I know from your perspective, I think you as and obviously I know you'd worked with some of the guys at the Muppeteers as well. I think you were kind of finding a ground whereby you know what, actually let's see how Jim Ratcliffe's doing. He's kind of speaking all the right things.
So let me explain this, lads. First of all, let me back
by the way, you ain't going to justify. I'm just talking about, just how things were happening.
This is important.
Right? Yeah.
To extrapolate the bigger picture about the Qataris, what people need to understand is that the Red Knights that try to buy United from the Glazers in 2012, we're going to use Qatari money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they went to Qataris back then,
Yeah.
which was confirmed by Jim O'Neill, of course, and there was no such objections. My preference, 100%, was always a complete buyout. I loathe the Glazers in an unhealthy way. I don't want them there. I don't think they will ever add anything positive, and they're a contaminant to everything that United do. We have no choice but to accept the situation as it is. This is not perfect. This is not what I want. I would also say that Jim Ratcliffe needs to be held to exactly the same standard as anyone else. I'm 47. I've seen a lot of United owners. United fans did not love Louis Edwards. They did not love Martin Edwards. They protested JP McManus and Magnier, Cubic Expression at Cheltenham, the Glazers. And this, just because Jim Ratcliffe has come along, doesn't mean all of a sudden you let your guard down. And there's no billionaire savior that's going to come in and be benevolent, because they don't think like that. So the idea that this guy is going to come in and restore United back to where it was, at a time that's long gone, is insane. It just won't happen. And he's already said things with what came out of the mouth of a Glazer would have created major controversy about selling the naming rights of Old Trafford, about the way he's treated the women's team and what have you. I think that he needs to be held to the same standard as anyone else. So
yeah,
because I can't separate my love of United. Right, I wish I could.
I think the biggest thing that I've found with yourself was you're absolutely right there. I think this is just me. You was okay. Well, this is Jim Ratcliffe is going to come. Okay, let's see how it goes. But yeah, what you've just said is absolutely correct, because you've kind of thought, hang on, well, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem right. That do you know what I mean? So you've held it where it's you've questioned where it should be questioned. Like you said, the stuff with the women's team, the kind of things that they'd said. To me, I was willing to give him a chance, but I'll get your opinion in this. The way Eric Ten Hag had been treated, I think that for me was just like nothing's changed.
Well, I mean, we've yet to see this area of expertise that they said they're going to bring to us. That's massive contrast in what we've seen before, and we'll have to see. I mean, to me, the signings this summer look exactly the same as what they would have looked last summer. I mean, Delict. I mean, if they'd have been signed last summer, would have. I mean, we would have called them Ten Hag signings. But I mean, to me, it's okay. They obviously need to be given time. I understand that, but that doesn't mean that we should assume they're going to do a great job. And because once you become emotionally committed to an outcome, you start overlooking all the negatives that are right in front of your eyes, because you don't want to admit that there's problems. So to me, it's like I'm at an age where I don't really care who likes me and who doesn't. So I get grief. Oh, you're negative. You're. Oh, I don't give a shit. I don't care. To me, this has cost me a lot personally with United. United are cut my access everything over a lot of the criticism. I don't care. So I'm not going to play this obsequious game of where everything's positive and the negatives, I'm just rather say nothing. That's just not how I'm wired. So to me, it's like if I see something I don't like or disagree with, I'm going to say it.
No, that's absolutely fair. And go on, Aki.
Because what you've just said about United and the whole fan base and Jim Ratcliffe, I think you're bang on correct. Because look, my tweets in the last few days, all I'm getting is you're being salty, you're being negative because Qatari didn't come in. It's not about Qatari coming in. It's about 100% sale. I think every fan who is involved, who supports United from how many years, 20 years, 40 years, like you with Phil, they've always wanted 100% sale. Now, if you can't support the 100% sale, what are you supposed to do? It's like you said, no other owner was loved by United fans. Edwards, even for example, Michael Knighton as well. Like he was in the office for about 62 days. The Glazers, they've literally rinsed the whole club out.
Of course.
Now, you need to put Ratcliffe in that category. So, to be honest with you, if Qataris come in, they'd be in the same category as well, unless we see a big change. That's the difference. But people don't see that. They just see it as, okay, you know what? He's come in. We are back. We are back. No, that's kids talking, not adults like us.
Here's the thing, Aggie. The Twitter, social media is a terrible platform to have any of these nuanced conversations, to take anything serious away, because most people are just communicating with an avatar. They don't. They're not communicating with a human being, and everything's binary. Everything is binary. You're either this or you're that, and so you get to a certain point where you just ignore 99% of it, because it's essentially just a massive YouTube comments page. And
I'm just always amazed of how many people either are better coaches, better scouts, or better, in the finance department, and
don't forget the physicians, the physicians and the dietitians. Don't forget them.
Well, I mean, look, football fans have opinions. That's fine, but you have to have humility behind your opinion and recognize that it's just that it's very possibly wrong. And if someone chooses you, it's not okay. One of the biggest consequences, or biggest, sadly, as a consequence of the environment that we live in, we have now seen the ability to admit you're wrong being removed from society, because no one wants to say that. No one wants to turn around. It's this ability that's been a major casualty of modern discourse. Is some of this, of course, is the fact that if 10 years ago you believed this and now you believe that, certain people will never let you forget that you believed this. So there's no incentive to change your mind. To me, one of the highest indicators of integrity of a human being is if they can turn around and go, do you know what, I'm wrong, because that says to me this is someone that has a commitment to being right. Rather, they're more committed to what's right than who's right. But most people are more committed to who's right than what's right, and you're never. These are people you can't change their mind with evidence. There's no evidence they'll accept that will change their opinion, because they're emotionally committed to the view they hold. So you have to realize that there's no utility in arguing. Just accept they think the way they think, and that's okay. Twitter, if it's designed for outrage. Outrage drives engagement. It's designed to irritate you. It's designed to put you in a bad mood so that you respond to people, and you have to disconnect from it.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of experienced that. We definitely know that there.
I went through that this week.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how it for you lads. I'm sure you get it far more than me. I mean, I get it on a small scale, which I ignore. But I mean, I have no idea what it's like to be, to have different ethnicity and
oh yeah,
that used to get because I'm sure it happens all the time.
I think you get used to it. I think you get used to it. That's the thing.
It's sad to say that we get used to it, but that's kind of the reality. Like, like when my family first moved, to this country and stuff, and like
are all you lads Indian, by the way? Is that sorry?
No. So me and Akil are Pakistani.
Okay, so Pakistan.
So half families came from Pakistan, half came from India, and it's that same thing of, like back in the days, my granddad would have a white name to fit in at work, and my mum the same, and it's just so weird, man. But like my thing on Twitter was, I made a comment 6 months ago or something about Dan Ashworth. And all I said was, if he turns down MBS money, or if you think he's going to turn down MBS money to come and put the Manchester back in Manchester, I don't know what to tell you. Because that was my belief. I thought Newcastle will dig their heels in and they'll get, they'll probably increase his paycheck, or they'll find a way around it. Lo and behold, 6 months later, we confirmed the signing. I had people coming out the woodwork thinking I was a Newcastle fan. Someone said I'm not even from England. And I'm like, have you made that assumption because of my name? Like, is that where you've got that from? And he's like, you've never been to Old Trafford. You've never had a season ticket. I went, right, okay. But first of all, I had a season ticket till like 2018. But why does that matter? Like, there's millions of fans around the world who haven't been to games, but as Harp said, stay awake till 3-4 in the morning. And like, it's just absolutely mental.
Most people are worried about how they're going to put food on the table tomorrow, not flying to Old Trafford. And it doesn't negate the legitimacy of their opinion. And what you gave was an opinion. So what's the big deal? I mean, pre-social media, these opinions disappeared into the void. Nobody remembered them 6 months later.
Yeah.
Now people use them against you. I mean, it would be remarkable if we were never wrong. Of course we're wrong. Everybody's wrong, right?
Yeah.
That's just life. I mean, this is not, you're not a war correspondent. You're a football fan with a football opinion. And maybe you predict an outcome based on, certain, facts. Most people don't leave if, they're making enormous amounts of money, and United was in a very different place 6 months ago. So it was a reasonable opinion. And no one really knew how tight PSR was going to pressure clubs into, because I can assure you, if PSR didn't exist, I highly doubt Dan Ashworth would have been allowed to leave the way he did. This is, you realize that no one's debating your opinion there. This is just being used as a way to attack you personally. You just have to ignore that.
Yeah, I had a bit of fun with the guy and then just left him to it.
I would just don't even feed it, man, because this is, there's no dividend to you in your life.
Phil,
you can't win an argument with someone like that.
These bulls thrive on it, man. I don't get it how they.
We're little wind-up merchants. That's what it is.
I'm like you, Phil. I'm like you. I haven't got the time or the energy to do it.
Put your phone down, go do something else. There's no nourishment in that. It's just a dead end, and you'll spend hours arguing with someone, and you're going, "What?" Tomorrow you'll wake up and go, "Why? Why did I do that?" The opportunity cost in your own life of all a million dollars you can be in. Don't do it.
See, that's where I'm at now, because I'm at a point where it's just an app. Whoever you reply to, you're never gonna win. That's how it is. And I'm like you. I don't care what people think of me. Like, I think everyone knows that, really. But it is what it is. But what I want to ask you, Phil, was Dan Ashworth. What do you think of him as a sporting director?
So these guys, their lives are about to change. These guys have operated with anonymity, and they've been able to do a job without having major pressure put on.
Are you talking about Dan Ashworth, James Wilcox, and
Wilcox, Dan Ashworth?
Yeah.
All these people, most people didn't know who Omar Barada was before he was appointed at United. Now, all of a sudden, his name's everywhere. Dave Brailsford, all this. If United don't start winning games, they're going to get slaughtered. I'd ask Ed Woodward, when they showed up at his house, threatening him. At United, there is no anonymity on board level, because everything, United fans are so fatigued with what's been going on. So these are guys that have never operated a top club. Barada has at City, but
not under the role that he's been recruited.
No, Wilcox recruitment for Southampton, Ashworth recruitment for Brighton and Newcastle, sending a different profile player, different type of player, doing a different type of job. And now you got to come into United, and all of a sudden you're trying to sign a different level of player. Now United may not be able to go for that player for a year or two. It's encouraging in the sense that they now have football people in football places doing things that they're qualified to do. But there's still a lot of unknowns. And again, these are people you'll have to judge. Not today, but in a year, 2 years. United have a massive job to do in being competitive in the youth markets, where City, Chelsea, Brighton are miles ahead of them. So there's a lot of work to do, and it's going to be really interesting, because dealing with United players, dealing with United managers, dealing with United expectation is going to be unlike anything these people have ever dealt with before. I mean, this is a concern for me with Ratcliffe, because what if the next 2 years go really bad and he is getting slaughtered? Do you think he's going to want to buy the club in 3 years? I mean, he's going to go, I don't need this, and out.
Yeah.
I mean, so they have to get it right away.
And this is the thing, Phil, I mean, your opinion, I think a lot of people have got my opinion, but what gives you the faith, if any, that Ineos can sort this?
Well, I'm agnostic on it. The only thing that gives me some level of encouragement is that they're the first people to have put their own money into the football club, where success, is something that they're investing in. because
but also Phil is they're all the first people that Glazers have given a chance to come in an ownership. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this position.
The Glazers were financially at the end of the road. I mean, they had to do so. They've been trying to do this since 2020.
18, I think. 18.
Well, in 18 they were offered by the Qataris because they were right here in 18.
Yeah.
But pretty much since they done that 100 million sell off, I think it was the first year after COVID. They tried to do a deal with 6th Street, but the problem has always been getting an agreement with all 6 siblings, you know, because the bylaws are written in such a way where they have to. 4 of the 6 desperately want to sell the club, the other 2 don't. Look, for me, I'm like I said, I'm agnostic. We'll see what happens. You know, I'm always suspicious of, you know, identifying someone as a savior, some hero, and they're, you know, multi-billionaires. These guys are not benevolent. These guys are not, you know, they don't do things just because they're generous. You know, I mean, I understand that Jim Ratcliffe wants a legacy and everything. I accept that, but they've been doing this for so long. They've conditioned themselves to not have tremendous empathy for people at the bottom. You see 20%, 25% of United staff that's going to get laid off, which are the people at the bottom, which need the jobs. And I'm not saying it doesn't have to happen or it shouldn't happen, but, you know, when you see things like Jim Ratcliffe ripping the admin department, right, but not the stadium, not the Glazers, not the fact that the full football club's in decay, you want to pick on the people at the bottom. Nah, I don't like that. So, you know, it's going to be bumpy for a while, and it's you know, they're going to run it as a ruthless business.
And I think that's just ending on that there. What you just said, it's a business.
You know, to a degree, it's a football club that has a business department. The problem is, if your first principle is profit, then everything is a slave to that. So if you have a situation where getting rid of a player might cost you 10 million, but in the long run, it can win you the league, clubs that prioritize profit don't do that. They keep the player, which is why United have all these players on their books that should have been moved on years ago. Glazers have not been trying to win the league. No one's job at United in the last 10 years has depended upon them winning the league, right? They are people that have just been trying to qualify for revenue streams. Why they went after the Super League, why, you know, Jim Ratcliffe wants to consolidate power in the top 6, why, you know, they were only concerned about when qualifying for the Champions League, and they never built on that. Arsenal qualified for the Champions League, they built on it, and the Glazers have never done that. So these are people that are not trying to put the best product on the markets. They're just trying to get a product on the market that people will buy and they can make money, and that's it. They don't really care. City, they're trying to put the best product on the market. Technically, they're United and City compete, but they're in different weight classes.
Yeah, there is no competition, like you said. They compete in the same field, but there is no actual competition.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, say Zach Pellegrini and Mancini, both of them won the league. None of them would have got sacked at United.
No.
Yeah, but you could see what was happening. We could all see the first 2 years they came in. They're spending money left, right, and centre. Nothing happened. And they're like, right, okay, what do we go and do? We go and get the best operators in class. So they went and got the guys from Barcelona. So they set it all up. They knew they were going to get Pep, so they set it all up beforehand. So all those players that Pep won the league with, I think there was only like 3 or 4 that he'd brought in. Majority of them were already there. Like, do you know what I mean? So if they were able to do that with spending money, and they bought the best in class, we're now doing it by cutting money, like you just said. 25% of the workforce is now going, and we're bringing in people who aren't the best in class, and some of them who have not even done that job in the past. Do you know what I mean? So that's where I'm cynical from. But you know, we're not going to go that way. Phil, the new season. Go on.
No, I was just saying we'll have to see how they do their jobs. This is the thing. The job that Dan Ashworth does, there's not a lot of obvious alternatives, and football is going to end up paying enormous release fees for people like this because PSR has teeth. And so this is why United wanted Ashworth so bad, because these people haven't really been important to football clubs. They haven't had any desire or commitment to be, to be profitable or to have a balanced bottom line. But now they have to. And there's not a lot of people that understand football that know how to do that job to that degree. It's so, in United's slight defense, I don't know who else is really out there that they could go get that's an obvious, appointment that brings guaranteed best in class, because it just hasn't been that important in football. You see Newcastle trying to replace Ashworth, it's not obvious who they should. And these are hard appointments, but the other ones we'll have to see. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we let the best man go. Ralph Ragnick, he was there right in front of us, and he went. But the new season's coming up. What's your expectations?
Really difficult to say anything right now, because United haven't recruited yet. The expectation will be commensurate with the level of player that they sign and who they sign. I mean, the reality is, outside of 3 or 4 players, United have a pretty average Premier League squad, which, once you get injuries, they're going to finish where they finish, because that's pretty much the level of their squad.
But do you think it's the squad? Because if I look at like Liverpool, when they'd come up, when they come up the rise, they'd bought Gini Wijnaldum, who'd got relegated. I think they bought Roberts, who'd also been relegated as well. Henderson wasn't exactly putting up trees at at Sunderland, but these all became core players. Even what's his name, the Brazilian Firmino, when he was in Germany, wasn't doing exactly. Do you think it's the player, or it is that environment? Even Jim Ratcliffe's talked about it, the environment. Do you think it's that?
So here's the thing about any business, any football team, any sports team, that you have to incentivize people to do 2 things: to achieve individual goals and to achieve a collective goal. In order to keep athletes completely motivated and focused on the collective goal, you have to, that's a weekly basis thing. That's not something you do at the start of season. So if you have players like Casemiro, you have top players, and they lose the belief that they can achieve the collective goal, they'll work towards individual goals. Everything in it has been set up for individual goals, because it's all been about a cash grab for everyone. No one's been working towards a collective goal. So not incentivized to achieve that. So the problem is, when you get these top players and they lose the belief, they're a nuisance to have around. You go ask Casemiro to get up for a game at home to Burnley to get into the Europa Conference League. This is a guy who's never finished outside the top 4 in his entire career. This is how you lose players like Marcus Rashford. This is how you lose top players, because they aren't motivated by that. And it's up to the club to have a commitment to making sure those goals are the only acceptable definition of success. This is what success is. This is what failure is. But the problem is that the Glazers, if you ask the Glazers, what's your definition of success, it will not have a football answer. So the environment has to have a very, very clear structure of, this is what success looks like. This is what failure looks like. If you don't achieve success, you leave. And this is why it's important to go to players like Ronaldo and top players, that it doesn't matter who you are. If you don't achieve this level of success, you have to go. United have never had consequence for failure. And as I said earlier, no one's job at the club in the last 10 years is dependent upon them winning the league. You will not win leagues when you're not trying to. The Premier League's too difficult. Once they have an environment where that's the only acceptable level and they pour every resource into accomplishing that, then you have a chance. But that means that you have to invest in sports science. It means that you have to invest properly in a medical department. You have to bring in a number of staff. It means that you have to do things that there really is no obvious return on investment on. The Glazers saw United's value in their brand. So millions of people walking around wearing New York Yankees hats don't have any idea how they did in their last Major League Baseball game, because it's a fashion item. So the Glazers saw United the same way. These results are really irrelevant to the value of our brand. This is why they didn't invest in the stadium. United could be playing in a car park. It would be the same brand to them. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
So now you have to have something substantive, some actual investment in the things that aren't sexy, that contribute towards you winning the league. And this is where This is what any of us will have to do, and it's going to take a while to get that right. But you will never win league titles if you don't have the environment right.
Yeah, I just hope they don't do what they've done to Mercedes.
I don't know anything about that. Organisms respond to their environment. So if you have a negative environment, then you will never get anything successful out of that.
Can I just ask one question there, Phil? So obviously you spoke about the environment, you spoke about Jim and the things he said. Now, I hold this opinion that Jim's doing way too much talking. Like, I get it, you're a billionaire. Your brand Ineos is now somehow tied to Manchester United, one of the biggest brands in the world. Let me get out there and, maybe Ineos get a little bump off this as well. But all these interviews, all this talking, all this crap he's coming out with, because I will say it's crap because I'm going to wait for it all to be backed up first. Like, I just think stop talking, start walking. Like, actions speak louder than words, right? But what's your stance on that?
So this is what I'm saying about self-awareness with billionaires and their egos. So for years, we've wanted United owners to communicate.
Yeah.
I would like to see Omar Barada do an interview and say, this is the vision for I understand it doesn't start yet, but, I don't understand what benefit it has when Jim Ratcliffe's coming out taunting Newcastle saying they're being awkward with Ashworth. I mean, what do you expect it's going to produce? Nothing positive, right? To me, it's just certain things you should shut your mouth on. And, whenever you're making mistakes, like not notifying the women that their party is cancelled and you're doing these interviews, to me, it's these softball questions that he's being thrown. Why isn't he being asked about that? Why isn't he being asked about, his petrochemicals, and climate change, which is causing, enormous suffering across the planet, right? Which is destroying ecosystems, which, the people in low-lying islands are having their lands, taken away. And, he's talking about immigration with Brexit and everything. And what do you think drives a significant part of immigration? One, your colonialism. Two, your exploitation of other people's countries. Three, the fact that their islands are being swallowed up because of petrochemicals company, polluting the environment. I mean, this is typical of these people. And so to me, like, if you want to do an interview to talk about your vision with United and all that, fine. But someone that knows nothing about football, which, let's be honest, Jim Ratcliffe's appointing people who do, I would keep him in his lane. I would say that, this is not petrochemicals. So
yeah, because if you look at Ineos Sports and go down the route of OGC Nice and his other clubs, they haven't really done well. And this is where I question Ineos Sports in terms of what can they do at United. Like, now it's a different league. Like you said, the people they're bringing in, Ashworth, Wilcock, Brady, they've come into United on a different scale from different positions. And this is a much bigger scale, a bigger platform. So there's a lot of questions to be asked in terms of that.
100%. But I mean, I'm not going to skewer him. I mean, there's certain things that I wish he wouldn't do, certain things I wish he wouldn't say. And undoubtedly, he will get things wrong. But most owners of football clubs, you don't hear from. Right? Now, some of that's by design because they don't want to be asked questions.
Look at Robert Bromwich. Look at Chelsea owner Robert Bromwich. I mean, when he come in,
Bromwich wasn't given interviews for a good reason. But I understand. But you don't hear from FSG. You're not hearing from. When was the last time Stan Kroenke did an interview?
Yeah.
To me, I think that it's good that they communicate. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking that, but these don't appear to be interviews that are for the purpose of communicating to United fans what's going on with their club. These are interviews where Jim's being asked a couple of different questions, answering them about United, but they're not for the specific purpose of communicating with United fans. Look, they'll be judged on what they do, not what they say, and they've made a commitment to make sure fans are integral to the decision making at the football club on things like naming rights and what have you, and moving the stadium. So we'll see.
Yeah, like you said, I think there's a few things that we'll just have to see, and I think we won't know a lot of the questions to these answers until it happens. But yeah, look, all we can do is hope. I think that's all we ever have. Every season is a new season, yeah, clean slate,
Yeah.
and no matter how many times we'll get back to, we'll still come back again, and say, right, it's our season, it's our
Look,
season.
lads, we can all disagree about what goes on off the pitch, but the one thing we all agree in is how we feel when United win a game or when they score.
Yeah,
Right?
100%.
That's the thing that we have. We have a shared experience that is similar amongst all of us. It produces similar emotions. The disappointment produces different reactions. The positivity produces different reactions. We all process that in different ways, but ultimately, we just want to see this team be successful, this club be successful. And as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to United or life in general, there's no hierarchy amongst fans or anything else over who's more legitimate than anything else. We're all just a big community of football United fans.
Yeah, and like you said, that's what binds us all together. Phil, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure, lads. Anytime at all.
But you're not going yet. We've got a quick
Okay.
fire questions.
Go ahead.
I'm going to ask you, yeah. So before you go, international game, World Cup final, Northern Ireland, USA. Who's winning it?
Do you know so?
Who do you want to win it, should I say?
How do I even answer this? In trouble. I am the most unpatriotic, unnationalistic person ever. Right? I think that patriotism is bullshit. I think these are carefully curated concepts that boil down to nothing more than obedience to state power. And big states demand rabid patriotism from their people. They always have, because how else can you conscript people into a military without conferring an identity on them? And so I've never really liked international football and never felt any level of commitment to any particular team. I watch it. But remember what I said earlier about how your identity, your man without a country, it's sort of how I feel, is that I think that countries are essentially all just economic competitors, and they form economic alliances, and what we were saying earlier, about everything's about money, and they battle each other over the pursuit of money and power. And my patriotism is for people. It's not for countries or regions. I just think it's all nonsense. And so for me, it's like, if someone was playing Northern Ireland or Republic of Ireland and they were a small underdog team, and they beat them, I could be great. To me, it's like, I always say with the underdog and everything.
So you're going Northern Ireland, yeah?
Not because they're Northern Ireland, but I mean,
no, but I'm going to go by FIFA rankings now. I think the USA are above Northern Ireland, hence why they're the underdogs.
Northern Ireland is a dysfunctional mess in everything because of sectarianism. So it produces things by accident. So unfortunately, to have governance, you have to have agreed truths. In deeply divided tribal societies, it's difficult to get agreed truths for governance because everything stands in opposition to each other. So,
like you said, it's the old adage, divide and conquer, and
this is unfortunately, this is the British did behind the Pakistan,
no.
So
that's fine. Go on then. I don't want to, because I know we're going to get some political guys on here. They're gonna do our heads in, aren't they? But okay. The next question then: MLS or the Premier League?
Oh, Premier League. I don't have time to watch MLS. I mean, nothing disrespectful. I just don't have time.
Are you watching the Euros and the Copa America?
That's what I'm watching. Or the Euros? Which one do you find more entertaining?
I was saying last night, Copa America, they're going to start doing weigh-ins before the match because it's pure violence. They're both really entertaining. To be fair, I've enjoyed both of them. They're very different in their passion, but right now I would have to say the Euros.
Euros, good man. And two more questions. Go on, Aki.
So the Euros, who do you think who's going to win the Euros?
Yeah, I haven't got a clue. I mean, the only two teams that are really decent were Spain and Germany, probably.
Yeah.
You know, England still in there. They have the quality, but they haven't impressed yet.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Yeah. So the last two questions: football or soccer?
Oh, it's football.
Good
I was
lad.
arguing with my kids in the car every day. So football. It
And the
is.
I was say, and the last one then, Landon Donovan or George Best?
What do you mean? What's the comparison?
The two best players of those
It's
nations.
like comparing Dog and Bounty Hunter with Einstein. No, they're two human beings. Now, listen, one day, if the US actually prioritizes developing the best players in the world, they'll get them. But right now, the system isn't prioritized for that. The system's prioritized for who can pay. Ronaldo and Messi showed up to play club soccer in America, and their parents couldn't write a check. They don't play. That's insane. So, you know, there's a lot of really talented kids here. Sport is massive. Football is massive here. America's size works against it because it's really hard to scout because the place is enormous. You know, there's a lot of talent here, but they have to actually prioritize looking for them.
No, understandable. Phil, like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, like I said,
thank you for having me as always.
Thank you, and
Welcome.
obviously welcome anytime. Have a good one. Thank you.
Take it easy, boys. See ya.
Cheers, man.
Bye.